I really didn't know much about forgiveness when I began the chapter in my life after Jesse's murder. I knew you were supposed to forgive, but that's about it. What I learned through my experience was life-changing. I learned that forgiving has nothing to do with forgetting. I will never forget about Jesse. Forgiving does not mean condoning someone else's actions either. What the shooter did to Jesse and the others will never be okay. And it doesn't mean that he isn't accountable for his actions. We're all accountable for our actions and our inactions. Forgiveness is simply cutting the cord that attaches us to pain. Let me explain. Forgiveness is the key to my resilience. It's how I was able to form the movement to choose love and move forward with very little anger. Forgiveness enabled me to be a role model for my surviving son. Forgiveness is the single most important part of my journey towards healing and taking back my personal power. When I saw the 3 words that Jesse left on our kitchen chalkboard, I knew that if the shooter had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, the tragedy would never have happened. It was in this way that I could start to feel compassion for him. It's beneficial when we can remember that we're all humans with faults and that people who hurt people have usually been hurt themselves. I watched as others blamed him and his mother who left her guns unlocked. Well, it would be convenient if it actually was their fault, because then it would never have happened before and it would never happen again. Yet it continues to happen. We've had hundreds of school-related shootings since Sandy Hook Elementary. We have about 1 per week in our country. And I know that's hard to hear. And I just want you to know that we at the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement are doing everything we can to make sure that children have access to the tools and skills needed for social and emotional competence that can prevent violence in any form. I thought about the definition of blame. Dr. Brene Brown, a research professor at the University of Houston, found in her studies that blame is the discharging of discomfort and pain. It has an inverse relationship with responsibility. So when we blame someone for something, we are literally trying to give away our pain. And in doing this, also responsibility for what we're feeling. When we take responsibility for what we're feeling, we have all of our personal power intact. We are in control of our thoughts and feelings that then become our actions. When we don't take personal responsibility, when we blame someone else for how we're thinking and feeling, it creates a sense of powerlessness and anger. When we say, "You made me mad," we're in effect saying, what I'm thinking and feeling is your fault and I'm the victim, so I can't do anything about it. When we feel like victims, it definitely makes us angry. We feel powerless to change our situation. Thus, we take our personal power back by being responsible for our own thoughts and feelings. One has to change themselves. We all know how difficult it is to change others around us. That is why we focus on changing our own thoughts and perceptions. When we blame, we literally give our personal power to someone else. We are saying, I'm a victim. I'm giving you the responsibility for how I'm feeling, so now you're the only one that can make it better. This is actually contrary to what my understanding was before the shooting. And if you have to rewind and watch this part again, I encourage you to do so. I learned to take responsibility for what I was feeling, even in my extreme situation of having my son murdered. By making the choice to forgive, I took responsibility for my thoughts and feelings. I chose to release my anger and to choose love. In essence, I'm saying, I'm taking back my personal power and you don't control my thoughts and feelings. Otherwise, I would have been another victim of the shooter, giving him control over my thoughts and feelings and ultimately even my actions. This could look like anger, depression, and worse. My first talk was to an at-risk youth group. I was asked to speak about forgiveness, so I stood up in front of 100 or so kids and started talking about my journey. After about 10 minutes, one man in the back row raised his hand. He asked, "What is forgiveness?" Well, I had a moment of panic because I thought I'd been talking about what forgiveness was. I realized I had to change tactics. I said, okay, I'm going to show you what it was for me. I felt like I was attached to the shooter by an umbilical cord that came out of my side and attached to his, like this. All of my personal power flowed out of me in the form of anger into the shooter through this umbilical cord. I dragged him around everywhere I went because I gave him control of my thoughts and feelings that became my actions. Forgiveness to me was a big set of scissors. I cut the cord that attached me to pain. Immediately, I felt all of my personal power rush back into me. The young man nodded and then asked another question. How long did it take you to do that? I said, well, I did this fairly quickly because I learned a bit about the shooter's life and realized that his needs had been neglected. He had actually cried out for help, as children do, and was ignored. So I felt compassion for him. When I humanized him, it helped me to forgive. But that doesn't mean that I don't fall back into anger. I learned that forgiveness starts with a choice and then becomes a process. It might be something that you do every day, several times a day, like I do. But the incredible thing is, it reduces anger and gives you your power back of your thoughts and feelings. It gives you control of the situation instead of being a victim. Forgiveness is really a gift you give yourself. Blame is something that prevents you from finding the source of your own pain and suffering. This might be the number one issue in our society because this victimizes us and leaves